I'd like to take a moment this morning to talk about confidence, because in the mindset world, people tend to think that confidence is a mindset thing, but it is absolutely not. In my experience, people who use mindset tricks to build up their confidence spend their whole lives needing to build up and pile up all of these techniques, because what happens when we get in this state of mind of telling ourselves that what you've got to do is feel the fear and do it anyway. And so you kind of pep talk yourself up to doing something really scary. You prove to yourself that you can do it, so you feel like, okay, well, I've done it before, so I can do it again. And then you reach for something that's a little bit more scary. Then you have to pep talk yourself even more. And we continue in this cycle of trying to trick our mind into believing that we are confident, when in actual fact, confidence is a state of being. It's not a state of mind. It's really something that we embody to the core of our being. And the way that we can embody this is by figuring out why we feel that fear in the first place. So I'll just talk about one of my fears, and I don't feel vulnerable in sharing this at all, even though it's a little bit weird. I know how transformative this has been for some of my clients to hear this story. So I used to have a fear of heights. It was a completely irrational fear of heights. So my background is in interior design. So I used to, at one point, have to quite regularly, do things like just step on a chair to rearrange something, or to kind of like, move things around and, decorate stuff and, arrange settings. I would stand on a chair and feel anxiety in my chest. And if you know me, I'm not an anxious person. I've always been pretty laid back. To be totally honest, I think that I had a lot of anxiety that I just learned to completely numb out. But in my everyday life, I was not someone who felt anxiety in my chest. I didn't have that kind of reaction. But when I'd stand on a chair, I would sometimes be not close to a panic attack, but it was really intense for me. And I thought that it was a fear of heights. So I did some pretty extreme things, like I learned to skydive, because I had told myself that if I can jump out of a plane, surely I wouldn't be scared of standing on a chair anymore. So I didn't do the kind of like skydiving where you go tandem jump. I went all in. I did the skydiving course. And the very first time I jumped out of a plane was with nobody with me, did it all by myself, and I did my whole training, skydiving license. Well, it didn't solve my problem. I still had a fear of heights. So I tried all kinds of things, but at one point when I started studying hypnotherapy, that was something that was in my awareness. I was like, well, okay, one day I'll go and figure out why I'm scared of heights. I'll get to the bottom of it. And what happened is, when I actually finally had the time and space and awareness to realize that this fear of heights was really impacting my life in many ways, I went and looked deeper. So on a subconscious level. And I didn't have a fear of heights at all. What came up for me was different emotional patterns, where it wasn't the fear of the height, it wasn't the fear of falling, it was the grief that I was holding. I had a belief that if I fell, no one would be there to catch me. And this was linked to grief, it was linked to losing friends, it was linked to all kinds of emotional things that had happened. Nothing to do with heights. But that's how it was manifesting in my life. And this is the same for everybody, for every single fear and everything that stops us from going out and really harnessing what we came here to do, or what we desire to do, or what will take us to the next level in our career or in our life in general. There's always an emotional pattern that often has nothing to do with the symptom that's manifesting. So for me, it was grief that was causing a fear of heights. Logically, to the brain, that does not make sense, but the emotional body does not make sense to the mind, and yet it is very real. So what I'd like to inspire you to do is, if you have a fear of something, or if something is holding you back from feeling confident, it's not about pushing yourself to do that. It's not about putting yourself constantly in situations of fear, because you're actually going to create a pattern of getting so used to the fear that you'll just burn out your nervous system. And then it'll be really hard and long to recover from that. The most efficient solution that I have found is to go to the root cause of the problem on an emotional level. And that doesn't mean that you actually have to, through hypnotherapy, you kind of access the trauma and you go into that emotion, and it can be really challenging and overwhelming. With the kind of energetic healing that I do, I can shift that without you having to really witness that. So if that's something that you feel would benefit you, I'd love you to get in touch. I, at this stage of my life, am not afraid of heights anymore. So sure, the other day I went to a lookout and saw the most epic view of the ocean. I had to walk up this kind of like metal staircase. It was pretty solid, but you could see the ground from where you're walking on the steps. I didn't feel great about it. I was, a little bit nervous, because it's normal to feel a little bit of fear when we're in situations like that. What is not normal is to have an anxiety in your chest that's telling you to not do that thing that you actually want to do, because the result is that I got to see one of the most amazing views of the Northern Territory that I'd ever seen. So thanks for listening. Have a beautiful day.